Hey, what is up? Intro to Designers. This is Jason, and today I am going to show you how to complete a perspective sketch of this room. You should be able to find all the materials you need to do this exercise on Canvas in the Canvas app under modules. And I believe the title is perspective assignment. It should be there. If you can't find it, let me know. I will point you in the right direction. All right. So how are we going to do this? Well, the very first thing we're going to do, and you're going to reference both my lecture on perspective drawing, as well as that slideshow I shared with y'all and all the imagery I also shared with perspective drawing ideas, concepts, visuals, etc., etc., etc. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of paper and I'm going to draw a picture plane on it. And how do I know, based on this bit of information, what the picture plane should be? Well, I'm going to do this drawing so it looks sort of like this, so that the wider walls, or the bigger walls of this room by architect John Adam. This is actually his drawing that I found, and we're going to use this for our sketch today. And we're going to take each part and we're going to put it in perspective, and it's going to be beautiful. So, picture plane. First thing I need to do, picture plane. Well, if I want this to be my upstage wall, I need to figure out what this ratio is, right? So that this room is going to fit right inside of my theater proscenium. And I have determined that it is twice as long, twice as wide as it is tall. So there's a ratio of 2 to 1, okay? So on my piece of paper here, I'm going to draw a picture plane that is going to have the ratio of 2 to 1. And given on the size I have, I'm going to make my room 8 inches by 4 inches. All right, so that means it's going to be 8 inches. Oh, if you've never seen these tools, you've probably seen this tool being used in a costume shop. I am a huge fan of using it as a set designer in my studio because it means that I can quick measure things and see through it, and it's very useful. You can get these probably for about $3 or $4 on Amazon, hopefully now during our interesting times, but this will help. But you will need some kind of measuring device to do this exercise, pretty much only to draw out your picture plane. The rest I'm going to teach you how to do without measurements, although they still might come in handy. All right, so picture plane. 8 inches by 4 inches. So I'm just simply drawing a rectangle that is going to represent my picture plane. Drawing a rectangle. All right. I now have a picture plane that is, let's see, yeah, 4 inches by 8 inches. Okay. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to determine where I want my horizon line. Now, I'm a 60-40 guy. I'm a real big fan of the 60-40 ratio, right? Which would put my horizon line probably about there. Totally eyeballing it. Maybe we should go just a little lower. All right, so that's going to become my horizon line. Now, see, this is where this tool becomes really useful because I can just line it up and not worry. So if you can get your hand on one of these, I highly recommend it. Of course, I know we're dealing with interesting times. Okay, now I have a horizon line. So we're gonna do the room in 1-point perspective, right? So that means that the picture plane is all right angles, and if you were looking at it, you would be looking at it dead on. Now remember, 1-point perspective is always a bit of a lie, but we use it when we draw perspective. So that's my picture plane. And if you couldn't, now you can decide where you want your vanishing point for your 1-point perspective of the room to go. I'm gonna just put it right in the middle because for the sake of teaching this exercise, I think it's probably gonna be the most useful thing. So that is going to be my vanishing point. Now, I'm at this really exciting time where I can actually just start drawing out the framework of the room. Now, it's a bit tricky. You have to sort of guess what you think, because remember, this room, not only are the walls walls twice as long as they are tall, but the room itself sort of has a golden ratio aspect to it. So I'm gonna sort of just eyeball where I think the room is gonna end. I'm gonna make it end there. All right, now I'm gonna do the same thing, right? These bottom corners are gonna go to the vanishing point. Now, this is where my handy dandy tool comes in. I love this thing. And that's gonna be, all right, now I have a floor. All right, now that I have my floor, the rest is gonna fall into place really easy. So I'm just gonna draw this corner down. I'm gonna draw this corner down. And then I'm gonna go straight up. And I'm gonna go straight up. Now, I can already tell that I am not happy with how deep I made the room. I think the room feels too deep. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and make it not as deep. Because when you're doing a perspective sketch, you get to play God, and you get to make all of these kinds of decisions for yourself, which is awesome. Oops. That'll happen. All right, now I'm gonna get rid of all of these because I don't want my room that deep. All right, but I don't want to forget my horizon line. Okay. Now, how on earth am I going to make this room have all of these fancy details? Well, I'm going to decide. So this is going to be, see my windows here? I'm going to put my windows over here. Now, what you can do is if you draw an X on this thing, like that, and then if I draw an X on this thing, like that, suddenly I know exactly where the middle is, right? And so I might just sort of start to gradually sketch. Now remember, pay attention to your vanishing point. And really, the goal of this, now see, I'm looking at these relationships. Proportion, proportion, proportion. It's all about proportion. And that's a skinny, skinny, skinny mirror. So we're gonna make that mirror skinny, skinny, skinny. And then there's the two windows on the side of it. So you see all of my verticals, I'm just doing straight up and down because they're all parallel to each other, right? They're all parallel to each other. So they can really just go straight up and down. And it looks like that's actually a pretty close to that. So that's gonna go back to the vanishing point. All of your verticals go straight up and down. All your horizontals go to your vanishing point. And we have a wall. And there's there's a little bit of molding at the top. Don't forget the molding. Molding's important. We love molding. We're gonna do this little doodad up here. Now these sketches can be fairly rough. The goal is to see that you can really think about what perspective does to shape, what perspective does to objects. And then, okay, so now I know, so that I have a window, 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 window. These windows have a mullion that goes right down the middle of them. How do you find the middle of your windows? Well, you just draw another X. And you're gonna make that also completely vertical thing. Now, it's okay to eyeball some of these details. It really is. All right. So I think you're starting to understand. You can draw X's, and then you can start to really work in the proportions of all the details. Get your mullions in. All the mullions are gonna go to the vanishing point. All the horizontal mullions, right, are gonna go to the vanishing point. Right? So I have my picture plane, I have my horizon line, I have my wall, and I'm using this X method to help me understand the proportion. Now you can add X's if you need to. Adding X's is totally fine. Another thing that might help you in terms of finding proportions of these walls, because everything in this image is lined up, right? This is the floor plan. This is the wall, those are the windows, this is the wall, that's a door. If you were to draw, let's see, let's just do a quick measurement. Yeah, if you were to say, if you wanted to draw a grid on the floor, and then you could also use that grid on the floor and project up. But again, you would need to use your vanishing point in determining that, right? Let's see, and then there's a panel on the wall. But what did I do? It needs to go to the vanishing point. Needs to go to the vanishing point. Right, and then there's a panel on this wall. That needs to go to the vanishing point. That needs to go to the vanishing point. And now I can tell that, see this thing here? That's actually a table. So, and it's like a funky table. So I'm gonna sketch the table. I need a vanishing point to the front of the table. And there's a table. And then maybe there's some legs to that table. Don't worry too much about what necessarily what's on that, although if you want to follow it, you can. All right. And so you're going to do the same thing. So these are your walls. This is your ceiling. I've also given you two figures and a chandelier. And then you're also going to have a chair. Maybe you want to do two chairs. Now, how are you going to do your chairs? Your chairs are not going to have the same vanishing... If your chairs were completely aligned in the room, if your chairs were like aligned in the room and parallel or perpendicular to the walls, then they can follow this vanishing point. But if a chair is to the side like this, then it probably needs its own vanishing point somewhere. All right, so we're gonna say, all right, we're gonna be arbitrary about it. That is a vanishing point for a chair. And when you're doing your furniture, oh, and then we also need, of course, another vanishing point. We're gonna put that vanishing point there. Because when you're doing something at an angle like this, it's at 2-point perspective. It is no longer at 1-point perspective because it's at an angle. So this chair has this vanishing point and this vanishing point. And I'm just gonna make a box out of it for now. Just make a box. And then I'm gonna say, okay, well, I know, so this is 3 feet tall. Chairs tend to be 3 feet tall. I know that's 3 feet tall because it's a chair rail. And I bet you, if I look, yeah, see that chair rail is there on this wall, on this upstage wall too. So I'm just gonna make that chair rail go all the way across. It'll be a good reference point for me for the rest of my time drawing the sketch. All right, so now I have a chair rail all around the room, which means my chair is not going to be taller than this chair rail. So I'm going to take this vanishing point, now, yeah, I'm making a box first. I am making a box first. And then I'm going to find the middle of that because chairs, usually the halfway up is where the seat is. So I'm going to make it a box and I'm going to cut it in half. As you can see, I'm using my 2 wide vanishing points to make this chair come to life. All right, so that is the outline of my chair. If I got rid of these things, let's see, and I want it to look like that, right? So I'm gonna just fill it back in. Oh, how nice. It's a really square chair. It kind of does this weird blip thing there. Another weird blip thing there. My chair. Little legs. We have little legs for the chair. There's like a little round seat on top of it. We have that. It has sort of that thing going on. See, so I made a box and then I filled it in with my chair, right? Using these 2 vanishing points. So now this chair is also in perspective to this room, even though it's not following this vanishing point, because it's at an angle. All right, I am going to sign off for now. I imagine there will be questions about this assignment because this assignment is a little complicated, but I'm gonna let you all get started on it during class, and then as you need help, I will be available. All right, I will see you soon.